Hi there, this is Haida. Be sure to pause the next slide and review the instructions for navigating the module. It will help you capture both big ideas and pause for details. Hello everyone, and welcome to Module 1, What Works in Adult ESL. I hope you're ready to engage some new ideas and adapt some old ones when you start to tutor one-to-one. We have some proven strategies for you to try out. Some of the ideas come out of a national study on what works in adult ESL. Others are based on the lesson flow, which you may remember. In this module, we'll show you how to adapt the evidence-based practices that were developed for group instruction to a one-to-one tutoring context. So this is what you can expect in this module. First, we will show you a video that you may remember. It's called Coming to America and introduces us to the various backgrounds and experiences of adult ESL students. Notice the varied educational backgrounds of the students and the different goals that they bring to the learning process and to life in general. Next, we will explain how you can adapt the lesson flow and make it work in a one-to-one session. We'll share some research on what works as promised. And the most controversial of which, by the way, was the use of the native language with ESL students. We will have you, as you do with all the students, remember a few key points, and we will leave you with some resources to adapt to your own setting. Here's a quick overview of the key sections in Module 1. Remember that the slide deck is on the English Forward website as well, and you can print up the slides and look at them later or while you go along. Think about the diversity of immigrants and refugees coming to the United States, all with different backgrounds, dreams, and goals. Next is a video that has students tell their stories in their own voices. We also have some questions for you to think about later on.
In a dynamic, often tumultuous world, one thing remains constant: the magnetic pull of the American dream. Each year, thousands of people make a bold decision to leave their homelands and immigrate to the United States. Many of them find their way to Central Texas. In this program, we'll meet 6 of these immigrants. Ikhlas, 34, is from Baghdad, Iraq. When life in her war-torn country became unbearable, she fled to the United States with her husband and 3 children. Olga, 48, moved to the U.S. from Tulancingo, Mexico when she was 20 years old, looking for a better life. Now a grandmother, she recently acted on a lifelong dream to learn English and has plans for continuing her education. Vera is from Ekaterinburg, Russia. Vera was a television and theater producer in Russia, where she earned 2 degrees in the arts. She gave up her career in her homeland to provide a better life for her daughter, who now works as a model in Dallas. Primo, 47, is from Pinar del Rio, Cuba, situated in a region of mountain ranges and tobacco fields. Primo taught mathematics and physics in Cuba before moving to the U.S. with his family. He's studying English and hopes to one day teach again. Rusi, 49, is from the city of Uvira in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She lived near beautiful Lake Tanganyika until tribal warfare forced her to move to the United States, where she now lives with her 6 children. Samuel, 27, is from Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. He came to the U.S. to look for work to help his impoverished family. He's learned enough English through a workplace literacy program to tend bar in a popular restaurant.
Take a quick look at these questions. Wouldn't it be fun to meet some of these students and get to know them better? I hope you get a chance to listen to their stories and discuss them with others. Next, let's take a look at some of the limitations, but we'll also discuss some of the advantages of one-to-one tutoring. You know that the English Forward approach supports group instruction, but we all know that sometimes a student cannot attend a class for whatever reason. Learning without a group is not ideal for second language acquisition. So let's look at some of the limitations of learning a language in a one-to-one context instead of in a class. But right after that, we will also look at some of the advantages of learning with a tutor one-to-one. As you can see here, a student who is not part of a class does not get the same opportunities to develop her English skills. One of the greatest advantages of working one-to-one is the personal attention you are able to give a student. You can customize your lessons to meet the needs of a single student every day. And for students who don't know how to read and write in any language, and for those who have learning difficulties that cannot be addressed in a class, one-to-one tutoring might actually be the best option. You have seen the lesson flow in your training, and if you have used the English Forward curriculum, you have become quite familiar with each component. But what if you only teach one student? How can you make the lesson flow work for him or her? In the next section, we'll briefly review each step and tell you how to modify it for working with a single student. Here you see the lesson flow in its entirety. You can also check the English Forward Instructor's Guide for details. On the next few slides, each step will appear in red on the slide. Here's what you do in step 1. Introduce your topic with a prompt or an object from your Realia toolkit. Say a few words about the topic. Write a keyword out on chart paper and ask your student what other words she might know. For example, you might write house or city and then capture related words such as apartment or traffic in a word web. When you present information as part of step 2, be sure to say a few sentences at a time so your student can see how ideas connect. This is an important step for preparing a student to understand a radio broadcast or lectures or other language input that uses connected speech. You probably ask your students a lot of personal questions already, and that's both important and really worthwhile. But students also need to pay attention to information that they hear and read. And you want to help them see how much they do or don't understand so they can focus in on details. Using true-false cards is a quick and easy way to do that even with one student. And it's fun too. We often assume that a student understands both a main idea and details, even when we're presenting information orally. But you want to make sure that this is really true. So discuss the topic a bit more, focusing on key concepts and not options as you discuss the theme with your student. Then double-check understanding. You could say something like, "Let's do a quick check to see how much you remember." Such a quick check will help your student develop listening comprehension skills and will show you where you need to review. In step 4, you get ready to set up whatever language task you want the student to do. Don't worry, we'll give you lots of practical ideas for tasks that work for one-to-one tutoring a little later in this module. Guided practice won't take long if you work with one student at a time. You simply say, let's try this task together, and then make sure your instructions for the tasks are clear. If not, go back and simplify or try an easier starting point. Step 6, small group work, is the one step in the lesson flow that will require some planning and adjustment on your part as you work with a single student. But if you're willing to act as a partner with your student, you can adapt many of the English Forward peer-to-peer activities. We'll show you example a little bit later in the module. So far, the lesson flow has focused on fluency, communicative abilities. But now it's time to also focus on accuracy or correctness. Here are some things you might do in this step. Select vocabulary that has come up and review with your students, perhaps doing some word study activities, focusing on roots and on endings. Or maybe you notice pronunciation difficulties that your student needs help with. Here's also your chance to draw your students' attention to a grammar point from the lesson. Step 8 is where you end a lesson by summarizing key points and getting feedback from your student, rather than simply stopping when the time is up. Of course, you could just ask, what did you learn today? What should we talk about next? What was easy? What was difficult for you? But sometimes it's helpful for both of you if the student writes down his thoughts. I'd like to spend a bit of time to tell you about the findings from a national study conducted by the American Institutes for Research and Literacy Work International, my little company. The study focused on what works for adult ESL literacy students and involved 40 programs and over 400 students speaking 20 different languages. We observed classes, wrote down what teachers did, and related the instructional strategies the teachers used to student outcomes, scores on a variety of tests and assessments, all to determine which method were the most successful. This is a quick summary of the teaching strategies that help students increase their English skills. We'll look at these one by one. Varied interactions and activities help learners get English in different ways. That doesn't mean you should use a mishmash of different unrelated activities. Tying tasks and activities together as part of a theme helps all students learn better. To vary interactions, you do well by focusing on fluency during the first part of your lessons and then on accuracy in the How English Works segments, just like we did in the lesson flow. This will help your student acquire the kind of English skills she needs for different situations. Next, you'll hear about my favorite finding. Pause the slide when it comes up and read the tips. I think you will see why I really like this finding. Bringing in the outside, that was a strategy that made a difference. We found in the study that teachers whose lessons focused on what their students needed to do in their daily lives and brought in real stuff were much more successful than teachers who simply relied on textbooks. So find out as much as you can about when, where, and how your student needs English, and select materials accordingly. Use your Realio toolkit and check out the toolkit generator on the English Forward website. It's very cool. Let's look at some of the items from the toolkit next. Here you see a number of items that may be in your toolkit. Don't forget to have your students bring in things from home, including utility bills, announcement from a child's school, brochures she might get at a clinic, or a flyer from a grocery store. That should give you lots of things to discuss and build language around. Next, let's watch a video. You'll see how Karen, a teacher in Chicago, helps her students understand and remember concepts that are important to them. Notice how she uses a grocery flyer. What's important to these students? The names of vegetables and how much they cost in a farm or in a grocery store. Many of these students had gardens back home, and eggplant dishes were some of their favorites. As you watch the video, you'll notice that Karen works with a group. Can you imagine using similar strategies working with a single student? How would you adjust your strategy? Would you add anything or skip anything? I hope you'll get to watch this video together with other people and talk about your ideas.
What does it mean to pick? Pick. Did I pick these vegetables? Pick? Did I pick these?
No, you buy in the store.
That's right. On your flashcard, if there is a vegetable that you can't remember, so let's see. What's this? What's this? What's this? Oh, eggplant. Write it here in English. Eggplant. On the other side, write it in Bosnian. What's in Bosnian?
Patlıcan.
Huh?
Patlıcan.
Okay, so I will write eggplant.
Say, teacher, say.
I will.
Patlıcan.
I will write eggplant, and then I'll write patlıcan.
Oh, bravo. Yes. Very nice.
Okay? So I can say, eggplant, patlıcan, eggplant, patlıcan. So I can practice. Practice. Okay? Good job. Okay, I want to go to the next thing, and then we can have some more time later
Sale,
to
sold.
write our cards.
Sale, sold.
Sale. All right? A lot of times you get this paper from Jewel, and it says sale. Sale. What does that mean? Sale. So, yesterday, the peppers were $4. Today, the peppers are on sale. $2. Sale. Sale. Half price. Oh, half price sale.
This was our most controversial finding. When bilingual teachers use the native language of their students strategically and sensibly in the ESL classrooms, students showed higher gains in English than in classrooms where only English was used. It stands to reason. If the teacher briefly explains something in a language everyone understands, attention and comprehension increase. That way, a student can focus on the task at hand and focus in English, instead of being confused by an explanation that she may not fully understand. But if you don't speak the language your student speaks, what can you do then? We'll have some ideas for you later on. But first, let's look at some of the ways the bilingual teachers in the study use the native language. As the next slide comes up, go ahead and pause it so you can absorb some of the ideas. As you can see here, not every use of the native language was by the teacher. Students were allowed or encouraged to use the native language as well to help them get a point across. To see the first strategy used in a real classroom, the one where the teacher previews a lesson in the native language, watch the video that comes next. It shows Roseanne, a teacher in Socorro, Texas, preview her lesson in Spanish for a very low-level class of Spanish speakers. The students were all displaced workers with very little confidence in their own ability to understand English. Hearing the lesson previewed in their own language helps these students to focus on the English tasks that are the core of the lesson that follow.
Okay, students, hoy vamos a comenzar lecciones en que la tema habla de jobs, de trabajos, ¿ok? La lección de hoy es el primer lección porque vamos a hablar de su primer trabajo, ¿sí? De su primer trabajo. Your first job, ¿ok? I know, I know, that's okay. No lo estudiaron, that's fine. Es una lección. Lo vamos a estudiar hoy, ¿ok? Lo que vamos a comenzar esta lección enseñándole fotos de personas en sus diferentes trabajos, ¿ok? Quiero que vean las fotos y yo les voy a hacer preguntas sobre qué trabajo tienen, qué trabajo hacen, ¿ok? Maybe qué están haciendo. Preguntas así, ¿sí? In English. Again, yo voy a preguntar en inglés y me gustaría que ustedes estuvieran entendiendo, escucharon y traten de contestar en la manera que puedan. Ready?
But what if you don't speak the language your student speaks? You can still take advantage of the fact that your student has a native language that he can use as a resource in your tutoring session. Go ahead and pause the slide and look at these ideas. Do they make sense to you? Why or why not? Do you agree that native language use can be helpful? I'm hoping that you already noticed how many small group tasks from English Forward can be adapted to a one-to-one tutoring context. You just need to be willing to be a partner in the learning process. The tables on the next 3 slides show you how to make each unit work in tutoring. They are chock full of examples and therefore a bit text-heavy. So please pause each slide so you can take in the details and think about them. Let's hope you also get a chance to discuss them with others. But you can also go to the English Forward website, select the PowerPoint, and print up the slides to follow along. Which one of these units can you not wait to dig into? Which ones make the most sense to you to start with when you work with a single student? So after you did some lessons on getting to know your student, don't forget to use your goal-setting cards to find out where your student may want to go next. Find out more about interests and what gets your student up in the morning. Here are more topics to choose from. Pick the one you like the best. Don't forget that you can also create your own lessons using the lesson flow. Maybe your student is into machines, gears, and tools. There are plenty of catalogs out there that you could use. Or you can bring in tools and ask your students to do the same, and then create a lesson using similar principles. Here's a quick summary and something else to keep in mind. When you teach one student at a time, your role is likely to change from the sage on the stage in front of a class to the guide on the side as a tutor. Enjoy your role. We will leave you with a couple of resources that will give you more information on how to teach adult ESL. For my money, the handbook by my friend Betsy Parrish is really worth reading. And the Center for Applied Linguistics has a large array of documents that all deal with various aspects of adult ESL. Happy reading!